And Loretta Ryan.
Hey, would you feel safe if I asked you the question about walking in your suburb alone at night? Would you do it? I probably wouldn't, I'll be honest.
No, I just live down the road from a train station and I would not walk from the train station to home once it's dark.
Stories of youth crime have sent shockwaves through the community at large over recent months. But over the weekend, the one that really caught your attention, Loretta, was the CCTV footage from, it was around Hendra, wasn't it?
Yeah, showing masked youths armed with machetes going door to door in Hendra, looking for cars, trying to steal cars.
And there's some stats out from the Queensland Police Service annual report that shows less than 1 in 2 of us, so less than half of us, feel safe walking alone in their neighbourhoods at night. I want to bring in Dr. Terry Goldsworthy. He's a criminologist, a former police officer. He's based these days at Bond University. Terry, what about that question for you? Would you feel safe walking alone at night where you live?
Look, I would feel safe, but I can understand why many people wouldn't. And, it's interesting. On a weekend, I was walking with my wife and, a young fellow came past an electric bike at a rate of knots and I just asked him to slow down. He then abused me with language I won't repeat here. But even worse than that, as we continued our walk, he came back with a couple of his mates and they then blocked our path. Before it got to a confrontation, they moved when they saw I wasn't going to stop walking past. But again, a range of language thrown at us. And these would have been 15-year-olds. So I think people are concerned and have a perception that it's less safe to be out there walking. We've walked the same route for years and now we're wondering, are these kids going to be there continually? But the perceptions in Queensland actually match the reality. Crime is up, has been up for a number of years now, and it's not getting better. So people are only reflecting what they're seeing in the real world.
Well, what should be done? That story of yours is frightening, even though you said you feel safe, but I'm sure you didn't feel safe that day. What needs to be done?
Well, look, I think it comes back to a couple of things. One is looking at fighting crime. There are some substantial issues within the Queensland Police Service, and that's borne out by the Working for Queensland survey, which came out just a few weeks ago. And it shows that only 29% of the people surveyed within the police have faith in the senior executive, which is extraordinarily low. And it also shows that about 50% of those surveyed indicate that they only really intend to stay in the police for another 2 years. So you've got a large movement out of the police. People are dissatisfied with the leadership of the police, and you have crime up across about 11%. The crime rate rose in the last financial year. So there are some serious challenges for crime in general, and within that you have the youth crime crisis that we're facing at the moment. So I think it's problematic in terms of how we're approaching crime. I just haven't seen any answers come out of the senior executive as to how they're going to fix the crime problems in Queensland.
At the moment, Terry, and there has been a massive focus on youth crime, particularly this year, and the key messaging from government is that there is this core group of repeat offenders who are largely responsible. Do you see it in the same way?
Look, I think there is. There's less unique offenders. We're just about to publish an article on youth crime across Australia, and what it is showing us is that, yes, you may have less unique offenders, and that is only one child goes in and it goes out of the system, never comes back in. But what we're seeing is recidivism is increasing. And not only is recidivism increasing, but the type of offending is more serious. So, for instance, in Queensland, youth make up 18% of all offenders. But for robberies, stolen cars, they make up in excess of 50% of offenders. So they are overrepresented in those more serious offences. So that core group of 450 or thereabouts is problematic. I often kind of look at the analogy of how when we had the bikie problem in Queensland, we had 900 plus bikies. We immediately put 200 police into investigating and targeting those offenders to stop that offending. Yet here we have 450 youth offenders, but we seem very reluctant to deal with them adequately. I was speaking to some other media on a weekend. There's a community crime conference in Toowoomba, and I was amazed to hear that the minister admitted that there are still only 6 electronic monitoring devices issued to youth offenders in Queensland, yet we budgeted somewhere about $11.5 million to have over 100 of them issued, and it just hasn't happened.
And look, in reading so much about this over the past 6 months, 12 months or so. The call has been, instead of getting tougher, we need to get smarter about this and even looking at root causes of these problems. And a lot of that can stem to societal issues, family breakdowns and the like, and these children and juveniles not having a stable family environment. How much of that is at play here in your mind?
Yeah, look, that's a good point. I mean, there's two issues. One is the short-term offending cycle where you must protect the community. So if a youth offender or any offender's on a crime binge, they're out there stealing cars, using drugs, etc., the community protection is a priority. In the long-term offending cycle is where you can try and achieve the rehabilitation. And many of these young people can be rehabilitated, but you need to have programs that do address the causal factors. They're multifactorial. As you said, they are disengaged from the education system. About 40% of youth offenders had used methamphetamines. There's DV in the household. There's poor parenting skills. Those things need to be addressed long-term to stop the offending. At the other end, you must have laws that protect society and stop the people offending in the first place.
Yeah, because don't you think the public at the moment are feeling, look, I'm sick of hearing about this. I'm sick of hearing about programs. We heard about in a program on the weekend, the Bully Proof program, an additional $11.5 million to be spread further into this program to stop bullying in schools, which they hope if you get the kids early, they won't turn into crime. But people now, the community, are feeling, I don't want to hear it. I just want us to be safe now. I want something done now with the youth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, what we saw, I think, is, and it goes back to 2016 when the government removed breach of bail as an offence for youth and detention as last resort. We saw, I think, too much focus on sentencing outcomes being on the rehabilitation part. And the government forgot to some degree that one of the other sentencing outcomes that we look for is community protection. And the community, probably rightly so on the crime figures, I would argue, is concerned that the community protection was forgotten. And we've now seen the government try to alleviate those concerns. I don't know how successfully they're doing that, because each weekend we seem to see vigilantes, people arresting people to save their own property, etc., things like that, which has its own risks attached to it. And it's just general behaviour. I mean, this disrespectful behaviour we're seeing from young people, you wonder, do they behave like that at home? Is that acceptable behaviour at home? The police can't do everything. We shouldn't expect them to do everything. I think some parents need to step up to the plate and start, instilling some values in their children at a young age.
There's no easy solution. We hear that time and time again, Terry. And we are having these discussions, trying to formulate what can be done and what needs to improve. Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Criminologist Dr. Terry Goldsworthy from Bond University, Associate Professor there.